The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to PPC for SEO, Day 2. My name is Kyle Roof. I'm the lead tester for SIA, the SEO Intelligence Agency. It is my great pleasure to be your host. I want to apologize. I had a bit of a computer failure last year, and I dropped off at the end. People reported that Derek cried for the last 20 minutes, so I don't think I missed too much. But
that is about right. Yeah, that is about right.
But all things willing, hopefully my main goal today is to stay to the end. I would like to say there's a chance that you had a question and it wasn't answered, and we deeply apologize for that. If your question wasn't answered and you didn't get the opportunity to email or contact Derek about it, please post that question at the end. Even if it was just about day one and doesn't really apply to what happened today, post that question at the end, and Derek and I will stay on as long as needed to make sure that all those questions are answered. Additionally, if you have questions about the marketing brain, Derek will answer those questions in the Q&A at the end. Please hang on to the end, and you can ask any questions about that as well. So in the Q&A today, you can ask questions about day one, of course day two that we're going to roll through now, and also the marketing brain. And without further ado, it is my great pleasure to welcome back to the stage Derek Booth. Derek, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay and see the screen? There's just a couple of people just post into the chat just so I know that you can hear me. Yeah, good. Okay, so the second week. The first week we ended with a run through of setting up a campaign, and we set up a couple of ads, and there was an ad group in there. There were just a couple of things on that ad group that I just want to run through when we get into this week's session. But first of all, I just want to go through really what we're going to cover today. So what we're looking to do is we're going to set up more campaigns. As I said, we're just going to fix a couple of the issues from last week. And we're going to look at different personas and how to improve your ad copy. And the main purpose of this is for you to find even more ways in, to find even more keywords, and to reduce that cost per click right down. And I'm also going to cover why some keywords work for some people and not for others. And this is one of my little bugbears with the software and with keyword tools as to why really they're not the best all the time. So I would never just trust what the software tells me and then just blindly get on and follow it. So we showed this last week. This is something that I go through a lot. We're looking for those 3-word terms. And then what we set up last week on the campaign, when we start going through the results, we'll see a mixture of these 3, 4, and 5 keyword phrases. So all the time through today, I want you to think about this. Usually the 1- and 2-word terms are what I use as my seeds, but I also use the discovered 3, 4, and 5-word terms as seeds and the questions in order to find really good information for my SEO. So a common sort of problem, I suppose, with I think the way that people look at pay-per-click and the way they look at marketing and spending money on their advertising, people tend not to want to spend money on a search term that they think is not going to convert. So quite often I hear people talking about the sales funnel, whereby a person will be saying, I don't want to spend money on that particular term because it's too early in the sales funnel. So they would have a list of negative keywords that immediately they would apply to an ad group, and that list of negative keywords would be things like what, how, why, how much, what's the difference, so on and so on. So all of those questioning terms, a lot of people immediately negative, because what they want is just the ones at the end, because the perception is that they only want to pay for the conversions. What I want to show you as part of this process is actually there's an awful lot of value in those questions and in getting into different parts of the funnel because of the way that people are different and how they react in different situations. So we also looked briefly last week at this persona image, where we've got potentially multiple different ways of a user arriving at a given product. This is also the same when we get to talking about lawyers. Someone asked last week about the personal injury lawyer sector. You've got DUI. There's a lot of things with med spas. There's so many different services where the main two-word generic key term is extremely expensive. Using some of the techniques, you can do two things. The first thing is if you're paying $100 or $50 per click, by setting yourselves up in the way that I'm showing you, you can significantly reduce the cost per click on that generic term. The second thing is you'll discover perhaps even better terms in terms of giving you conversions, which will be a hell of a lot cheaper and will come from a different perspective and from a different angle. So again, think about this, this pentagon, different ways in for the same result. So using this example, which I've put in as a result of the conversation last week, personal injury solicitor, in the UK, solicitor is like a lawyer or an attorney. So the sort of process that I would go down, where I'm looking for these other personas and trying to find something better to go at. So we start with personal injury solicitor. This might be injury solicitor or personal injury, might be the two word. If you type into your Google search, of which I will drag over now, and we type in personal injury solicitor, using your keyword shuffle, once you've searched, if you click back in, you're then going to get an awful lot more in the way of what Google suggests is a search. So if we were to choose the no win, no fee, you've now got a key term which is 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got 7 words in that key term. What I also like about this term is you've then got a card here that explains no win, no fee. So you've now got things that you can write about, and these would be secondary terms that you could put on your site. They would be appropriate to the user, so they're definitely going to help in the quality and the content of the page. So as you scroll down, make sure that it's the sort of results that you want, and then as you get to the bottom, you've again got these search terms that Google's throwing up, where we've asked for personal injury solicitors, no win, no fee. If we look down at these search terms, we're really being headed with no win, no fee. So in this instance, no win, no fee is definitely something that we'd want to be exploring. So now we go to no win, no fee, we've got car accident. So from the car accident, I'll just pull over another tab. So we'll go no win, no fee. And as soon as we start typing CA for car, we've now got car damage, cash up front cases, car accident, no injury. So you can see how this process works. Now, once you start, there's many things that you can do that will lead you onto other terms. So if you're using this for your SEO, or if you're wanting to just go after the 2-word or 3-word generic term at the top by adding in these other phrases onto your site. These are going to make your main keyword cheaper, and you've got an opportunity to pick up those keywords. So we come down to whiplash. How much? This is taken directly from the Google keyword tool. So how much for whiplash? £4.63. Where these tend to go under the radar and why a lot of people don't really go for them is because it says the average monthly searches is only 170. So maybe when they were searching for car accident lawyer or personal injury lawyer or whatever that was, and they clicked average monthly searches, so they're now going to order it by the one that potentially brings them the most traffic. 27,000 to 170 it's an absolute no-brainer. The car accident lawyer wins all day long for people, but just look at that suggested bid. That's £136 per click. As we look further down, sorry, my slide thing popping up, we've got whiplash injury. So even though that is a 2-word term, from that 2-word term, if we fished on that 2-word term, competition is low. It's only £5.50 per click. We will definitely be discovering some more fantastic terms around whiplash injury. Because when we start going for things like whiplash injury, and we're talking about injuries, we type in whiplash injury. As soon as we hit whiplash injury, we go back in. We've now got severe whiplash symptoms, whiplash injury treatment. So to help with recovery, so now we've picked up a word recovery. We've also got pain, symptoms, causes. What causes whiplash? Bad back. So we can look at this site, WebMD, see what they say about it, maybe pinch, oh, there's a great one, neck sprains, neck strains, oh, neck, did we think about neck? So we've got, just from doing that little bit of work, we've actually got so many more terms now that we can put in. The more of those terms that you get in that Google knows, and knows that they are connected onto your pages, then the cheaper the overall 2-word generic will become. So now instead of you competing at whatever the price was, £138, I think, you might get that down to, I don't know, 70, 60, 50, 40. You could get that really, really low. So when you're setting up the campaigns, if you know or you think that that keyword is the keyword that you want, you would put that in its own campaign, make it exact match, set your budget for what you're willing to spend on that generic expensive term, and play around with your adverts, play around with the content on the page to try to get as best a match as possible for that particular generic term. Meanwhile, I would be fishing on the other terms that we've discovered and trying to throw in the maybe different sections. And you can throw those onto your page by doing FAQs. Maybe you've got a testimonial from someone, so you could insert various keywords into that testimonial, maybe put the location in there if the location is important. So rather than constantly keep going back and rewriting text and rewriting content, you can do it in subtle ways. There's one tip for people who use WordPress. So with WordPress, you can make widgets. So with your widgets, maybe on the right-hand side in the right-hand column, if you have a widget that shows the top 3 from a particular blog category, you could make that category maybe FAQ. If that was to do with a personal injury lawyer, maybe have several categories, one being on injuries, whiplash, one being on claims, and set up down that side just maybe 2 or 3 different categories that you've discovered from your fishing or from this research. And when you're uploading your blogs into that category, you can upload a blog that would contain maybe appropriate keywords, would be of interest. And what you're then going to do is make that page dynamic. You're going to keep adding good, relevant content, and you can do that then really without spending too much time optimizing that page and constantly having to change content. If you find that people are going down to that area and they're clicking on those blog posts and then going off to read them, then you've definitely hit on something that's appropriate. Maybe don't have that then as a blog post and integrate the blog that people are clicking on, actually integrate that into your page. And for sure, when they go to your blog post, you want your call to action on there as well, so you're not losing the visitor. So that is a way that you can really improve the quality of your pages, and that you can reduce the click costs. So if we do, again, a slightly different topic from a slightly different angle, I was asked to do some research for, again, a lawyers, and they wanted the family section to be improved. And I said, what do you mean by family section? And they said, well, you know, divorce, basically. So it's okay, separation. Nice topic, but, you know, they all count. So to start with, I type in divorce. The company is telling me that they want to be known for being good divorce solicitors or attorneys. So they've got this one page, and the one page on the website does the usual things. It says divorce solicitor, give us a call, contact us first. The first consultation is free, and we'll give you sort of good advice. There was no definition on there between male and female. So I go to Google, I type in divorce, and I see these terms underneath. So immediately for my fishing and for my thought process, I'm now starting to pick out key phrases which Google is telling me from a dictionary, from a thesaurus, and I'm finding different ways of getting to people. So in red at the bottom on this slide, we've got divorce advice and reasons for divorce. So over to the next page. If we were to start typing in on Google divorce advice, as we start to type, the first things that appear for men and for women, and then forum. So that suggests to me then that there's maybe 2 pages here. There should be one for men and one for women, because the rights and what they're entitled to and the mentality is completely different. So what a man thinks about a situation and what he's after is not the same as what a woman thinks. So if you think about that for a second, how can you correctly or logically write ad copy and a landing page that would suit the mentality or the personality or the thought process of a man compared to the woman? So what's the woman more interested in? And you can call me whatever you like, sexist or stereotypical. That's fine. I'm saying as it is. If there's kids involved, the woman generally is going to be more about the kids, more about the house. What can she get? Just by statistics, the chances are it's the man that's leaving the property. I know that's not the same in all cases, but if you work on certain principles, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand that the person looking at this page is going to be in a different mindset. So as we switch from just divorce advice, we go to divorce advice for men. We now see here that we've got different terms start to appear. We put in the question, what are a man's rights in divorce? We're now getting really good information coming through. We do the same for a woman. We're getting different results. We go just generically for costs. And now we've got here free divorce advice, grounds for divorce. We're getting questions in here. We've got an idea of price for filing for court. So I'll just go back a slide. So from just that one word, from divorce, you can see in terms of phishing, if you were setting up now a pay-per-click campaign to try to find the best keywords to be using, you've just got so many search terms here that you could use, that you could set up almost immediately dozens of campaigns. And instead of the campaigns being shotgun and just throwing terms in there the way that the AdWords system wants you to do, you can actually focus them on a feeling or on a personality. So now when you're writing your ad copy, you can write your ad copy based on what people are asking, on what the answers are, what you can see, and you definitely want to be taking this information and making sure you cover it on your landing pages. So another part of the business was conveyancing, which in the US is real estate. Is that right, Kyle? Is that
That is correct.
Yeah, so this is selling property. And the guy said to me, do you know what, Derek, this is the most boring subject ever. We have got no idea what to write other than it costs this amount of money and you can, we'll help you sell your property. And I was like, yeah, but there's thousands of things that you can put on the page. And he was like, well, like what? So what are people interested in when they're looking to sell their house or to buy a house? So you've got here a number of things. And then we've got conveyancer or solicitor. So again, a UK term where we talk about someone who is a conveyancer as opposed to a solicitor. Do you need both? Are they separate? I'm not sure how well that translates for America and Canada, but it's a question in the UK. So what about content? What could we put up for the content? Well, we've just seen that came up as a question, so maybe ask it as a question. People want to know prices, FAQs, they want checklists, what to do, what order to do stuff. They want guides on how to do things. You maybe want links to government websites, you could have a glossary of terms, and so on. Do you want more content? What about the rates, exchange rates? A little video to explain what you do. Show the person that you're real. Timeline, is that not important for people moving house? You could potentially show them where the hiccups might be. If you can show someone where the hiccups might be, they may work in a different manner to try to avoid or prevent those hiccups. So those two slides, the amount of information there for your real estate client, you could just fill it. There's an encyclopedia that you could put down. The final point on this is pictures of the property. If you've got a website or a landing page and you want a phrase to convert, the difference between a key phrase converting and not converting isn't hidden within the detail within the keywords tool or SEMrush or Majestic or your SEO tools. It might be that you're not appropriately matching your landing page for what the user intended or what the user wanted when they came in. So the route through from start to finish, if you're a solicitor and a lawyer, attorney, real estate, you've got to show a picture of a property on that page, surely. Maybe someone signing a completed deed. If you're doing DUI, have a picture of a car. It's obvious, but so many people miss it. Because what you can do in that image that you put on your landing page, you've got an opportunity then to put the keyword in the image URL, and you've also got an opportunity to put that keyword in the alt text. so you can really make that page appropriate to the keyword that you're after, and you're relating it to the user. So follow that journey through.
Derek, a U.S. example of your solicitor versus conveyor might be a real estate broker versus a real estate agent. They have different responsibilities, slightly different licensing that they have to go through, that sort of thing.
So is that a question that maybe somebody would ask?
I think for sure. Somebody that's brand new to the real estate market, do I need a broker? Do I need an agent? Do I need a lawyer? Those are all three different things. So yeah, that'd be a great, and that's such a long tail phrase. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And from that one long tail phrase, of what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically make that page a trusted page within Google. You're trying to get the card at the top. Once you get the card at the top, you've now taken extra space. Imagine backing that up with a really nice pay-per-click ad. You've also got the card at the top, so you're probably going to get one of the top 1, 2, or 3 positions in the listing. What you've now done is dominated the top part of that page. Once you reach that point, you can keep fishing for questions in your pay-per-click. Keep adding those questions onto that page. So that page now becomes bigger and bigger. You'll get more questions coming in from your SEO, and you just then develop a real nice, a nice hub. And you can then start playing in your pay-per-click with different words on your ad copy. See what works. It's so easy. Okay, so are there any questions on that? Kyle, is there anything?
I'm just checking right now. I need a flow chart or something. You were talking about using this to create SEO pages and PPC pages. I think the question is, so as you're walking through it, it makes perfect sense. But you're also clearly an expert. Maybe like if somebody's just getting into this, like kind of how to run through that flow, would you recommend that they do those searches and see the related searches and those other things, or what's the place to start might be the right question?
Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to cover now is more of that process, which is I do the work with the keywords. I do quite a bit of discovery before I actually get into doing a campaign. I'd then set up a campaign with a few terms in. I'd maybe want to see then how the campaign responds, just see whether people are actually using the page or the site, and then I want to start manipulating the site to suit what I'm finding. So what I wouldn't do is do loads and loads of research, create then maybe 10 or 20 or 30 campaigns and have everything set up and throw loads in at once. I do it much more methodically, which I'll show now on this next screen. So once I get an idea, I write that down, put it in my notepad. Oh, there's a section, there's a thought process. Here's some terms that I'm interested in. So I do that research process, play around in Google, look at me, auto suggest. And if at this stage people have got keyword tools and they want to go and use keyword tools for ideas, then yeah, great. You can also go to use Bing, you can get onto Yahoo, you can go onto Facebook, you can use like Hashtagify and search for hashtags and see what people are saying. You're basically just rummaging around for ideas that are appropriate, and then what I do is I choose maybe one to start with, and then I just expand that one out and move to the next and move to the next. So that's the way that I do it.
Derek,
So
when we're targeting these specific phrases, those ones that we're pulling out, like when you went through the divorce, so divorce for men, divorce for women, but then there were kind of those longer ones as well, and you decided that might be something to go after. Do you use that as broad match to start, Or if you really like it, or you've gone through this process, do you just take it and throw it as exact?
What I do is I always fish. So I actually do both. So if there's a term that I think I really like, and I'm convinced that that search term is going to be one that works, then from that particular term, I make it exact match. I'll do a negative in the broad match, which is one of the techniques that I'm going to actually be doing live on here with this, so that the exact match just goes straight to the exact match, and I'll fish and I'll continue to fish. So when I find a new term or when I find a new section, I always fish with broad match. If there's a phrase that I think I like, I'll put it into the exact match. But what I'm going to show you here now is why the exact match term and why that two-word generic isn't always going to show what you think it's going to show, even on a new site like this, which is the marketing brain site that we're using for this course. You can't just assume that because the two words are there that it's going to be good. So you have to fish. So yes, I do exact match, but I always fish, and I never turn the fishing off. It will fish forever, because as people change, as you get different seasons, as time moves on, company moves on, people will use different terms.
I can testify that in my own practice. I run those fishing campaigns, and it's amazing that how many terms you continue to glean out of those campaigns.
Yeah, I would always do it, always. So if we just move on to the next bit then, so this is it in reality. So last week I set up an ad group, and from the ad group that I'd got set up, which was in fishing, so as you can see, I've got this set as all time. I've got conversions coming through from the AdWords, and we've got several ad groups. So last week I started with one ad group, which was this one, keyword discovery. And within keyword discovery, I had set up this keyword discovery tool also within keyword discovery. When we got over to the ads, as I was sort of bombing through at the end, it turned out that we ended up with two ads with exactly the same text. So, ideally, you don't want two ads with exactly the same text, because it's a pointless exercise. So what I did is I changed one of the ads, and if we go back to the keywords, I just want to show with this setup now just a little bit of a problem that people get into. So I'm going to show you how to fix that problem, and obviously why it becomes a problem, and then how to get the exacts out and how to set up more fishing. So in this particular ad group, we set up keyword discovery. The way I like to label my ad groups and my campaigns, at campaign level, if I'm looking quickly, I know that everything within this campaign is fishing. What's really important here is the settings. When you get into making settings changes or adjustments to what you're doing, if we come down and we want to start changing locations and we want to get involved in more detailed locations, so we can start putting in different countries or different states and so on and so on. All of those decisions are a campaign-based decision. They're not an ad group-based decision. It's a campaign. So I label my campaigns with fishing. When I'm fishing, generally, I leave the delivery method as standard. Once I've got a key phrase that I really like, that I know works, Then when I set up the exact match, I'll come into here and I'll change that to accelerated, which basically means as much money as I've got available, I want Google to be showing my ad as many times as possible. When it's set as standard, Google is going to take the schedule on a daily basis, which at the moment is showing all time. It's going to take that on a daily basis and it is going to try to make my ads show for the entire period that is set. So when I'm fishing, I just want that to run. If it's B2B, or if I know there's certain times, or maybe if I'm doing calls, or there's a call with a phone number on there, and they're not open over a weekend, or they close at 5, then obviously I would come into here, change the ad schedule, and then set the times of day to suit. What you've also got is on devices. So if we know that certain devices are going to perform better, or if we know that there's a certain type of user that we would expect to be using it differently, that maybe we're looking of an evening and we see that mobile users of an evening are better, then what we might do is replicate this campaign. So during the day, we might be set for computers. We'd copy the campaign and then we'd set it up for mobile devices with full browsers. So in this section here, at campaign level, what you can do is you can adjust the bid value. So if we didn't want mobile devices to show during the day, then you can adjust the bid. This is Google telling us with its suggestion, with its simulator, what the differences would be. So if we were to go mobile devices, what we'll do is we will decrease the bid price by 99%. On 90%, depending on how you set. You're basically only bidding for a very, very small amount for mobile devices during that period, because Google doesn't give you the ability to turn certain devices on and off. So what you can do is you can significantly reduce the bid prices on the devices that you don't want. So therefore, it would force it more onto a computer. So depending on, again, what you're fishing for, understand the persona, you can significantly change the way that things respond and reduce your cost per click. So if we look at this particular one, it's a bit difficult because we've only had a few clicks. But if this was something you had running for several months, let's say, and you've got here a cost per conversion, which is way cheaper than the computer's cost per conversion, then I would definitely split these two campaigns into two, look at the difference between the mobile device and the computer, and work out whether the keywords I were going for were more appropriate for the computer or for the mobile. And from this split, you can then make your campaigns really super streamlined, because a mobile user is going to be different to a computer user. So on our keyword discovery work that we do within the settings, these settings are all based at campaign level. So I list my fish. I go into my ad group, I put an F so that I know when I'm looking at reports, it's really easy to distinguish which is which. Now in this one, back to last week, I set up keyword discovery. I went into add keywords. We saw keyword discovery tool. When I went on to the landing page, then on the landing page itself, we had keyword discovery tool. So it seemed to make sense that that was a key phrase that we'd go for. Because it looked prominent and popular, what I actually did was set up another ad group. So I put that keyword as well into this ad group. But what we've now created is what I call cross competition. So we're competing with ourselves, because we've said to Google that we want anything with keyword and discovery we'd like our ad to show. So that would be this ad in this ad group. I've also still got keyword discovery tool running in here, but I've set it up again in a different ad group. So I've now got two ad groups competing for the term. So what I really should be doing is, first of all, I should be pausing this keyword. But to make your phishing even more effective, because I've suggested here that the ad group is keyword discovery tool, the way I like to structure things so it's really simple and you can get that line following straight through. Got plus keyword, plus discovery, plus tool. Because tool is one of those qualifying terms, I ideally want to go back into my keyword discovery and add a negative for this ad group of the word tool. So now what I've done is I'm saying to Google, if somebody searches for keyword discovery tool, I don't want you to consider showing this ad, because this ad doesn't contain in the title the word tool, whereas this one absolutely contains the word tool. Does that make sense?
It does. So what you're trying to do is make sure that your phishing on those two words can continue without grabbing that tool term that you've already used, or you're already using exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that follows, yeah. So your ad copy can follow along. Okay, and there's something else to just cover. I see there's a note from someone. As I said at the beginning of last week's webinar, I'm going to run through this on the old AdWords interface, and then I'm going to do all of the setup again using the new AdWords interface, because the new AdWords interface is in beta, which keeps popping up. I'm not sure when they're going to switch over to it. I had mentioned to someone a few weeks ago now about whether it was the new or the old interface, and they didn't know. I don't know why they didn't have access to the new interface. So I'm doing everything on this interface, and all of the videos will be recreated for the setup on the new interface, so that'll get both covered for people. Okay, so in a similar vein, if we go for other terms that I started to discover, so we've got SEO keyword research. So they just set up like that. At the moment, there's a single term in each one, but I don't necessarily just set it up like that. They're not SCAGs the way that they're set up. SCAGs being a term for single keyword ad group, which is what a lot of people say, and it's dead easy. Just set up this term, set up your ad group. You've got one ad that matches that term, send it to your landing page. Well, if we start looking in a little bit more detail, we can see for this term that we've only got at the moment a 5 out of 10 quality score. Our ad relevance is above average, which is really what you want in all three columns. So with it being above average, that means our ad is matching what our keyword request is. But our landing page and our expected click-through, we're not quite there. So if we go to the landing page, or the search term keyword discovery tool, which is what we've requested, if this page isn't really appropriate for the keyword discovery tool, we're definitely not going to be getting the quality of results that we want. And we did touch on this last week, talking about pages not having the right content. If your page hasn't got the right content, or the content that matches what you're looking for, you're not going to get the scores, no matter what you do, whether you put meta keywords in, or you start doing a little bit of optimization. Unless it really matches what you're after, you're going to struggle to get the better scores and to get some of the costs down. So before we start getting onto the page and making too many changes, we've got several terms here for phishing. That's all around one particular persona type. If we now go to the search terms, so we can see people were typing in more than just a 2 or 3 word term. So now we're starting to discover terms that are maybe more appropriate. And if you get your conversion set up, you can start to see which terms are leading to conversions. So what we deem a conversion, or what you would deem a conversion when you're setting this up, I would set up a conversion which is something where somebody is taking a positive action. So it's not necessarily completing a purchase, it's not necessarily completing a contact form, but if you've got a contact us page, then I would have the contact us page as a conversion if your landing page was a different page. So they go onto the landing page, they have to click a button or a call to action on there to take them to a contact page to then contact you. I would have that click as a conversion. Because what I'm trying to find is I'm trying to find phrases that lead to people taking a positive action, because these are phrases that I maybe want to be using in my SEO. So without losing sight of what we're trying to set up here, this isn't just a straight advanced, this is how you do PPC. What we're trying to do is we're trying to discover how to get those key phrases for SEO, how you can set this up best for SEO. So you might be SEOing for a mobile or for a desktop, which is why I just covered briefly earlier those settings and why those settings matter. So if we go back to the ad group that we set up and we click on the keywords, keyword research tool, we had 11 clicks. So we've got a number of issues here that we need to resolve. The first issue that we've got is our quality score is only 3 out of 10. So a 3 out of 10 quality score, we're really just on the lowest level of Google showing our ad for this term, as it's basically telling us that the quality of it is nowhere near where it needs to be. So we're going to get some really low scores. Once it goes below 3 on a quality, you'll get a red marker up and it'll be too low for Google to show, so you won't show for that term. But now if we actually check the search terms for what people searched, so this is what we're fishing for. Our key phrase was keyword research tool. For the actual key term, keyword research tool, out of those 11 clicks, we only had 2 clicks, but we got the most impressions from that generic term. We've then got the plural version of it, which Google gives us as a close variant, and we've got 11 there. And then we've got other terms, which at the moment Google isn't giving us many of, because we've got 0 clicks on the other 295 variations that existed. So from our fishing, we're now starting to build up more terms that we could and should be using. So the 3 that converted, so we've got here for UK, and being from the UK, I can sort of vouch for that term. One of our biggest issues and gripes is that with most things, it's focused around the US, so everything is google.com. We look for places for linking, for link building, and they're all American directories. Everything is American. It's very difficult to isolate. I'm not sure what that's like in other countries around the world, but I would imagine it's a similar thing where there's so much about the .com. So for us in the UK, adding the UK to a lot of the search terms is something that works really well. But we can also see here that we got free keyword research tool for SEO. So that is quite a good term that we've picked up. 2 impressions, 1 click, and it had a conversion. So now we've got a 5-word term where if we dropped that term somewhere onto this page and we started to build this page more about the keyword tool rather than it being about data and intelligence, then this set of key terms that we've been working with are going to start to appear cheaper and we're going to start to get better conversions. Now, in terms of organizing our campaigns and our ad groups, the words in this search term, free keyword research tool for SEO, if we look at this one, SEO keyword research, this search term also would have matched this ad group. Now in this ad group we've had 4 impressions. Again, we've got a low quality score. Our ad, SEO keyword research, we've got the ad in there, the copy in there, SEO keyword research. So to optimize these campaigns, as you start building out more and more of your phishing, just be aware and be mindful of the keywords that are being used, because the more overlap that you get as you create more phishing campaigns, then the more chance you've got of missing out on some of the terms, and you're not necessarily going to get the best quality scores that you could achieve. So to look at fixing this to get perhaps SEO keyword research terms more coming through for this campaign. In this campaign, maybe now if I added a negative in this ad group, sorry, if I added a negative of the SEO, now anything that would contain SEO is not going to appear in here. It's going to start to appear in one of the other ad groups. So I'll just cover that again. Where you've got a word which you're using in another ad group. So for this one, we had the search term where we got free keyword research tool for SEO. This search term would also match this one. And if this is potentially a better fit and the differentiator is SEO, if we now put SEO as a negative word, then we're going to force the SEO keyword research based phrases into a different ad group, which in this instance we would start to force into there. That's going to improve our quality and increase our quality. So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be improving and bringing up these quality scores. So the other problem that we've got is our ad copy. So last week what we did was we pretty much just threw these ads together using information from our landing page, taking stuff from our page, thinking that would maybe suit, that's perhaps a little bit on point, so we'll put that in, and we started to create our ads. So if you think about this process, you do your research, you understand the persona, you give yourself a list of some ideas of the types of people that are going to be using or you're hoping are going to be your clients to buy or take on your service. You then get to the point where you need to write your ads. So writing the ad copy is really difficult for some people. They're not wordsmiths. They really struggle at this point. They maybe write one ad and then just copy because it's easy to do. It's this point where you can really make a significant difference between the results that you would be getting from your keywords and whether that keyword is going to be a good enough driver to go through to get the conversion. So if we look at these 3 ads, we haven't really got a great deal to look at this stage. I say it's only a week old. We only put a few pounds on it to prove the point. But already we can see a pattern emerging. So in terms of impressions, they're all over 100, so they're very similar. And the reason that we get this situation is because in our settings, what we said for our campaign is that we'd like our ads on our ad delivery to rotate indefinitely. And if you go for one of these other options, then I often find it difficult to manipulate the ads because Google's not going to send the traffic evenly to the ads for me to test them. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking to be able to test different keywords, different sentences. I want to know what matches. I want to know what I put on my site. If you're running PPC generally, forget for your SEO. If you're just running it generally and you've got a client not paying you a great deal of money and you just want to set it up and let it go, then you can maybe choose one of these other options that might work better for you. But certainly for the fishing, I always have it on one of these rotation ones. So if we look at the ads now, four clicks, 6 clicks, 1 click. So our click-through rate on this particular one is 0.96. Just not good, particularly compared to these two. But what if this 1 click had actually given us a conversion? So the setting for Google, which is maybe optimized for clicks or optimized for conversions, if you've got a really nice ad that has worked and is converted, it might not be the highest click-through rate. That could be because you've maybe got 1 or 2 words in here that don't quite match, but there's definitely something that worked. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone through and taken the conversion. So rotate evenly. Once you start to see a pattern emerging, I usually want to see at least 200 impressions per ad to be able to see the pattern, because all things being equal, you're probably not going to see that much change once you've had 200 impressions from these. So once you've had 600 impressions, there's not going to be a great deal of difference. You're probably going to get an idea for one working and not working. So what I would now do here is I would pause this ad. These have both had conversions. They've both got decent click-through rates. And I would now try to write another ad, but I would also go back to my search terms. So in here, we've got the UK, which we can see. We've also had clicks from a few impressions using the word Google. So I'm going to write down UK on Google. I'm going to go back to my ads. And in here, have I got UK? I've got it in the domain name. I've got it in the domain name. And I've got the word Google. Now, some words you're going to be able to use, some you're not. Certain brand names, there's certain phrases that you can't use in your ads. Like you might get away with best, but usually that's one that the manual team will, once they've manually reviewed it, that they'll tell you that you can't have, because you can't make claims that you can't substantiate. although a lot of these processes, you've got a two-stage process. One is an automatic process from the Google's algorithm, and then your second pass is a manual process from someone at Google actually checking the ad to make sure that it works. So it's possible that sometimes you can get some of those phrases come through. But I'm certainly going to be wanting to add UK. So I can either select and copy, or I can just do a new ad. When I do a new ad, it's going to give me some of the terms anyway from one of my previous campaigns. So I click into there. I could get UK in there. If it reads well, then yes. If I don't like the way that that particularly reads, instant results. So I might go save hours, put a comma. Just so I get UK in there. And again, with the wording, if I'm thinking that these terms are going to work well in terms of my ad copy, I want to be making sure that I'm getting these key phrases onto the web page. I really want them to be, to be coming through. So I've added UK. So there's now my new ad. Doesn't word that great, but I've got UK in there. So what I would do with that as a thought process, I now want to be adding that information somewhere to this page. Now I've got on this page currently a lot of things that don't really match too well. So look at things differently that we do. That's not really a search term that people would use. If I go back to here, I had the SEO keyword research that I found here. And I also had the word free in there, which is obviously a really good word for people clicking on stuff. So if I've got a free trial, then, or if there is a light version that's permanently free, I've got free trial, I could maybe introduce a permanently free light version. So I'm probably going to change this now to be more keyword tool and SEO focused. On the flip side of things, if there's a key phrase on here that we like particularly, or if there's a word on here that is good, so we've got tailored with intelligence, understand your data. Now maybe that is a term on the other way that I could look to put into the ads. So into the generic keyword discovery, predict your next moves. So this one, these have been shown only a few times and not been clicked. The one that was clicked with a 40%. Keyword discovery, we predict your next moves, free trial. So keyword discovery. We predict your next moves, and we were saying about understand your data. So I would write that down and then try to build a description around that. So I'm looking now for maybe a search term or a key term that's really going to help bring that out, because if I write my ad where this exists on the landing page, this exists on the landing page, and this exists on the landing page, what I'm going to be doing is increasing the quality of the ad in relation to the landing page and working that back to the keyword. So going backwards and forwards through that process, you can really start to tune in your ad copy and tune in what you've got on your landing pages. So between now and the next lesson, what I'm going to do is take these terms, take what I've discovered from the ad copy and the keywords, and I'm going to apply those to this page, and I'm going to make this page more appropriate to now what this tool offers, which is the keyword discovery tool. Because when this tool was initially, when this page was initially done, it was going to be more about lots of other features and lots of other elements of the tool, hence the analytics and the data and so on and so on. But this is so typical of what I find with a client site when they ask me to start SEO in it. The key phrases that they want, the information and the traffic that they want, it doesn't actually match the landing page. You know, have you ever been to a client meeting and the client says that they want this phrase, and this phrase, and then you check the page and those phrases don't exist on the page, and you go, what do you want me to do? And oh, well, when we wrote the page, the person left and we've changed our mind. This has been upgraded. We haven't got time to update it. We don't know how to do it. We had a company tell us these were the best terms, so on and so on. So this I find is a very, very typical scenario where you're asking, or you've been asked to optimize a particular site or page, but the key phrases that you're after and the information that you want, it isn't actually on the landing page. So what this process will help you to do is to find those terms, write your ad copy, build your PPC with your SEO in mind. So this is definitely about keyword discovery. So I've got to get that on the page. If we go back to the pentagon, which is the 5 points of solution, problem, and so on. At the moment, what we're doing here mainly is we're really only talking about the solution. In some instances, we're crossing over to the problem where we've mentioned the maybe the niche keyword finder. But one of the things that we've missed completely from this is the actual brand name, the marketing brain. So whenever I set up a campaign, even if it's something where the brand name is there, I always fish on the brand name. So what are the reasons to fish on the brand name? And anybody come up with any questions or any points? Kyle, why would you fish on the brand name?
I'm gonna guess it's part of because those clicks are very cheap.
Yeah, that's one. See, someone's also mentioned reviews. Yes. See what negative is being said. Yes. Prevent competitors. Yes. You can also find what people will associate you with, what they're going to type in next. So yes. Where I use this to really good effect with a reputation management job, the client was brand name and then complaints. So when you went for brand name and then started to type CO, people were then even more feeding that monster, and complaints and bad reviews that then started to spiral out of control. So what we did was we did some pay-per-click on coupons. We did some SEO on coupons, and then we started to build up a process where as soon as people started to type in the C, they were seeing more of the coupons and they were going off to the coupons rather than going off and looking at the complaints. So we found that through the pay-per-click. What you can also do with your brand, which is one of the things that's mentioned in one of the slides, I think from last week, is people will type in like a comparison. So they might go your brand versus another brand. So they're now telling you who they think they're comparing you with. So in some sectors, there's maybe only one or two competitors and you know who they are. But if people are typing in your brand versus a competitor, you're now going to get a level and see what they're judging you on. You can then see what people are writing, if there is actually a review or if someone has done a competitive analysis. If you're losing on certain elements of that competitive analysis, or if maybe something positive is said about your competitor and you do it, but it's just not shown for people, again, you've got an easy win. Very, very easy. So yeah, there's so many reasons why you would want to use your brand name. So I would definitely set up your brand name as a phishing. So for next week, what I'm going to do, I say, is I'll fill this out. I'm going to set up the brand phishing campaign so that we can start to see results on that. And I'll actually go through the applying of the key terms into the site, because now what we're getting along is we're starting to cross over a little bit, where this isn't a course to tell you how to do SEO. This is a course to tell you how to find the keywords for you to use in your SEO. So what I don't want to be saying here is what you need to do is take that keyword, make that a H1, put that 10 times in the body, so on and so on, because obviously that could negatively affect something that you've already got going on with the site. But what I'll show you from my site, doing it with this, I'll do it live so you can see how I start to put that on and start to structure and build up this site. And at the moment, if we look at Search Console, so again, you can see this is, this is genuine. This is real. There wasn't a great deal going on with this site before we started. The only queries that we've got are now Marketing Brain that have come through. So we really want to be building this up over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So if we've got Marketing Brain here, then for sure we want Marketing Brain to be one of our pay-per-click. And if we maybe search for Marketing Brain, no one else is marketing for it. It's a bit too generic, but we could get potentially a very, very cheap advert up there for our brand name. So just back to finishing off this descriptive ad copy. So we've got understanding your data, which we had there. So we could use intelligence from your own. Again, that sentence isn't particularly good. So we would maybe say, instead of that, because we can get the word, again, we've got discovery, so we could get discover in there. So we could say, discover intelligence from your own PPC. Understand your data and improve SEO. So what we can do is really start to play around with different terms and the ad. A question that somebody asked me a few months ago about ad copy, and they said that they were dyslexic. How does that work? Because they struggle. They often get letters mixed up. They're really not good at words at all. And I said, what you can do for this at this point is, once you've created your keyword, you know what the keyword is, then if you've got a good copywriter, or if you want to sub this part of the work out, then you can actually have a conversation with someone and ask them to write you strap lines, or show them your landing page and ask them to come up with ideas that you can copy and paste into your ad. and I used to set up an Excel sheet, and on the Excel sheet I would have in that Excel sheet just the maximum number of characters, so that I could send that off to someone and they would write in all the words and all the strap lines that I could then paste in. So that's what you can do if you're not particularly good at the wording. Okay, so I think for now, for today, that's probably the main stuff that I wanted to cover. I'm open to questions, Kyle, or issues, or anything you want me to go over. Obviously, we've got the questions from last week, and we've got the marketing brain stuff.
Sure thing.
If there's anything immediate from people.
Yep. So, what gives you validation that a fished keyword will work? Are you looking at conversions only? Are you looking maybe at clicks and CTR and some combination? How do you say, like, yeah, this is the right word?
So I look for the CTR. If it's a high CTR, then there's obviously something in the ad and the keyword together that have matched. So even though it might not convert, because the conversion process is when you get to the web page. So the web page, the landing page, might not be doing justice what the ad copy and the keyword said. So I wouldn't immediately discount it if it doesn't convert. So if I think it looks good and it's got a high CTR, then I'll look at that separately, and what I'll do is I'll try to match that again and improve the landing page. Anything that has a conversion, for sure, I definitely want to be using and to make something of that term. I'd certainly be looking at the ad copy that was used and probably copying that same ad copy in my exact match. So once I've discovered it and I move it to the exact match, that's what I'm going to use that ad copy because it's worked. It's sort of proven itself. So it's not always just the keyword itself, it's the ad copy as well. That's what you really want to be putting on your pages for your SEO.
Next question, how much do you suggest to pay per click for personal injury lawyer PPC, personal injury lawyer for a phishing PPC campaign? I think this might be a better question. Like, so you've got something that's super high end, like you showed. The personal injury lawyer was like at 137 pounds or something like that. If you wanted to go at that particular term that you wanted to fish, is there a general rule of thumb that you would use to start those CPCs at for super high stuff?
Yeah. So what Google is doing when it's giving you the average cost per click, it's an average based on an average setup, an average campaign. Everything is average. So if let's say it's 100 for ease of this example. So let's say it's $100 for that click. That means that it's looking, you should be able to get that comfortably for around $70. So straight away you should be able to shave those $30 off. The difficulty is with the system, a lot of what you do is based on history. So the way AdWords works is you get a lot of value for history. Your history, your click-through rate, so many factors go in, but history is really, really important because Google works on that for the data. So once you go in with a certain key phrase at a certain cost and you start to get traffic and some results from that, you'll find that when you start to drop the cost per click, then you're going to start missing out on the search impression. Now, Google does have an opportunities tab where it says that you can actually reduce your cost per click and still maintain at a certain level. It does keep throwing that up now and again, but in general terms, if you've got historically you're willing to pay $100 per click for that, then Google's going to try and get you for that, and it doesn't want you reducing your bids. So the way that I do it is it would depend on a couple of factors. So factor number one, if I need results quick, the client's not paying a great deal of money, and I haven't really got the time to be going into this on a daily basis, particularly at the beginning, then what I would do is I would set the initial click at whatever the first page bid amount is. And the easy way to do that is I set my ad groups all the time at 10p. I put in the keyword. As soon as you've completed your first your first ad group. I think we can see it on one of these. Then Google will tell you, like this one. So Google will tell you what the first page bid is. So if we set this by default, our max cost per click at 10p or 10 cents, Google says actually first page bid should be 100, then go straight up to 100. If you've got more time, and if you're willing to go in on a daily basis, particularly where there's a lot of money involved, I tend to start at 50%. So if that says it's 100, then I'm going to come in at $50, knowing that I'm going to be going in every day for the next few days to just start to increase that cost per click. Now, I would be doing that once I've got a key term where I know that the landing page has got an opportunity to convert, because quality is something that counts a lot in your favor. So if you're doing wide open fishing and you're saying you're going for personal injury lawyer, and you don't even have that term on your page, and you absolutely know straight away this is going to be a low score, then there is no point putting 50% of that bid price straight away, because you're just not going to show. You may be going to get an odd impression and your quality score is going to stay low. If your page is pretty well set for that term and you're using it for fishing, then go in at 50%, because if your ad copy is really good and your term matches your landing page, then on all of the scoring metrics, apart from the bid, you're going to do well. So Google will immediately reward you for that process. So what you would then do is you'd be at 50, you'd maybe go 55, 60, 65, 70. So you're then at 70, you're now seeing that you're getting a top 3 position for that generic term. Your fishing terms will then also come in an awful lot cheaper. So straight away, you can hit a much lower cost per click. As you improve on doing that, you'll find that hitting the $50 instead of $100 per click, you will actually start to get clicks at the $50, and you might only need to raise it to say $60, $65, and you'll still be picking up between $50 and $60 clicks for that generic term. So it's all about your quality. Okay. Kyle, are you there? Or have you left us again?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Next question. When Google scans a page to look for the landing page score, do you know if they're looking at the content that humans can see? Do you know if they're looking at the source code? Do you know how Google crawls that page?
I don't know exactly. What I do know is that the same for PPC is SEO. SEO and PPC are the same quality score algorithm that's used. So the way I do it is the way I do my SEO, which is look at the H1s, the H2s, just basically structuring the page correctly, making sure that key term works on there. For people who've got Cora, I would be using sort of Cora. You want to really optimize that page as best you can for that term and the matched terms. But when Google is doing that scan, I've heard people say you really need to use the meta keywords, or you really need to get it in the meta description, that you can spam it because you can hide it in CSS. I've heard all sorts of stories. I don't know 100% for sure, but what I do is I look at it as an SEO page rather than as a PPC page. And if you follow keyword, ad copy, good SEO page, then you're going to be in the ballpark for a high quality score.
Right on. There was a question about applying this to H2s and H3s, kind of those fishing terms that you pull out, and I think you mentioned that you don't necessarily just apply them to the page, but you're gonna tackle this next week, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to show it on the site that we're using. So on the actual Marketing Brain website, some of the discovered terms that I've got, which I'll keep running and discover, and I'll add the brand one in, and I'll add a different persona one in. You'll see how that then gets applied to this page and ultimately this site. So in essence, yes, if you find a discovered term and that's a matched term, that's really close and particularly good, then you could put that in the H2. You could certainly use it within the body content, because for some of these 4, 5 and 6 word terms that you'll start to discover, you maybe only need it once on your page to be picking it up for SEO, providing the page theme is good enough. In terms of your pay-per-click, if you've got it once on the page, that really can be enough to get you that 10 out of 10 quality score. So it varies word to word, and it varies, you know, depending on what your site is. Because sometimes you might say, actually, this page isn't really appropriate for this term that I've just discovered. Okay, well, is it appropriate then if you maybe did a blog post or wrote another page on it, or maybe changed some calls to action around? Changing the call to action maybe affects other stuff that you're already ranking for, which you don't want to spoil. So you'd have to do another page. So then it's not as simple as, well, you know, just add another section or add a H2 or H3. That's more where your skill as a marketer has got to come into how you're looking after that site.
Do you think it's a fair technique, as we're talking about this, to say that phishing can produce on-page elements, that phishing can produce H tags, H2s, H3s that would be relevant?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, good. The question is, do you use the experiment section? That is the question that came in.
I used to a long time ago. When it first came out, I used to use it quite a lot, but now I don't. I'm not saying you can't. You could probably use that to really good effect, just in terms of time and now the way that I do things. I don't tend to use it because of sort of setup, and it's, you know, it's extra work basically. But yes, it's a great tool, and if you want to get into using that, that is a relatively safe way of you testing on an existing account for sure. And you could certainly be pitching yourself like on a scoring system. The way I used to do it was I'd try to score myself. I'd basically try 2 different approaches and then see which one would win, and you can then just let it automatically go with the winner. So yes, it's something that you could do for sure. I personally don't do it.
Right on. How long do you let phishing campaigns run? For example, if there's a high cost for like a 2-word keyword and it's costing a lot, do you have a rule of thumb? So I guess that's kind of like a 2-part question. One is there a general amount of time that you would let a keyword phishing campaign run? And then if you're in a really expensive one, would that vary?
Okay, so let's say we wanted here phishing terms that are focused around keyword discovery, but maybe keyword discovery is $85, let's say. It's a really expensive term. Then a way sort of around that is you can go into the negative, and either at ad group or campaign level, depending on how that you've got set up, you can add a negative in for the exact. So you could negative exact it. So now you're not going to get that generic term come through, but you are going to get the phished terms come through. So I try to keep phishing going as long as possible. There's going to be at some point where you reach, maybe with certain terms, where you're just starting to see the same terms over and over. That very rarely happens, but it can happen depending on what the topic is. So I like to keep things running all the time, or as long as possible, and I would always try to find or add ways in with maybe a negative or changing the ad copy to just try and mine a little bit more information. If it reaches a point where we've just done this and you're saying, look, keyword discovery is extremely expensive, but maybe I'm liking where we've got other words on, then create another phishing campaign. So create one campaign with one ad group with one term and set yourself a budget for maybe $10 a day. So even though it is expensive, you're never going to spend more than $10 a day on that particular phishing term. If it's $60 a click, then, you know, maybe your budget's going to have to be $60 a day. So you base that and judge that depending on what it is that you want from it. Because those 2-word generics, what I often find is that there's definitely going to be traffic and conversions from them. It's just that the cost of those conversions is so high that you've usually got many more 3, 4, 5, and 6-word terms like this, which is far more attainable and is a lot cheaper in terms of your PPC. And I think sometimes what gets some people hung up a little bit when they look at numbers for keyword tools. With a keyword tool, if it says like in our example before, there's 27,000 impressions available or visits available within that 1 month, how many actual orders or conversions are you really looking for? You can't be surely looking for 27,000 for, maybe a DUI or for something like that. If you're only looking for a handful a week, that might make a significant difference. Then it's not just about long tail. You want to go for the long tail that's got the best quality, and that's also going to have an opportunity to give you more traffic. So this isn't just a long tail exercise. You're actually going to search for the ones that convert, because you don't necessarily need thousands and thousands of visitors to be profitable. So think more about the profit and about your conversions rather than what the keyword tool is telling you in terms of popularity. So that's how I would do that. And if the 2-word generic is beyond your budget, then do like we've done in this instance, where you're adding a 3rd word, where you've already got a good idea of what that 3rd word is. And if you may be struggling for a little bit of inspiration, go to your 2-word, click plus AdWords, and Google's going to give you a big sample down here, where you can then maybe start looking for other terms. So go for your 3-worders, and anything that you discover, so like we discovered this one, then I'm also definitely going to be creating a new campaign stroke ad group where I'm actually going to be fishing on this discovered term and on this one to see what else is available.
Very cool. Next question, do you ever use copy or get inspiration from competitor ads? Any issues there?
Yeah. Yes. What I would do is I don't exactly copy them, but I do like other people's stuff. I mean, I have there's a famous phrase that I use all the time, which is like sort of piggybacking. If you see somebody doing something that you really like, then either get on the back of it or use a slight variation of it. I never go copy paste that into my ad. But let's say we're looking at this keyword tool and somebody uses a word like I don't know, like amazing, and I've not seen that before. I'd go, wow, okay, he used amazing in that way. I'll now include amazing in some of my stuff and see whether that works. So I definitely get inspiration from others for sure.
All right. Let's say in a situation where a potential client comes to you, or a new client comes to you, and they've got a search term report of some sort from their past PPC provider. Is there some sort of thing that you could look to in that old report that might give you maybe some of your phishing terms, for example, or maybe some of your exact match terms you might pull out initially just to run with? Any kind of guidance you can provide there?
Yeah, I often say that to clients. When you go to a client meeting, or when I go to a client meeting, there can be a number of different ones. Someone's never done it before, they've had it before, they've done PPC, they've been ripped off. You tend to get the same types of story with a slight variation. And whenever a client says to me, PPC doesn't work, AdWords doesn't work, it's too expensive, or I've had this company try and do stuff and it's been rubbish, I've been doing it for years, I always say to them, you've not wasted your money. What you've actually done is you've started a process that I call fishing, and you've actually already moved me along by potentially a few weeks, because you've definitely got keywords and data in there that I can see that people have actually typed in and responded to your ad copy and responded with your brand. So if that data is available, then I would always take that data. I would try to make sense of it myself. If you've only got the keywords to go from that have been used, then there's obviously not, it's not as useful as if they're maybe giving you a proper export report where you can see click-through rates and things. I definitely want to go with the higher click-through rate stuff. If they've got conversion data on there that's accurate, in other words, the conversions are actually real conversions, then for sure you want those keywords. I would extract those keywords and I would always make sure that they were in my exact match setup, and I would openly say to the client, these key terms have proven to be a converter in the past. That's the information you gave me. Therefore, we're going to cover those in this particular set of campaigns. And I'm definitely wanting these keywords as copy on your website, and we should be including these terms as part of your SEO reporting to see how they get on, because it looks like on a history basis they've proven to be good before. So yes, I would openly have that conversation. So yeah, that's a good question, good point.
Next one, does the amount of text on your landing page, whatever that might be, maybe very low 200 or very high 2000, have any effect on quality score?
Again, I don't know, and I don't want to make a sweeping statement here. You can have pages where there's only a small amount of text. One thing that we used to do, which we no longer do just because of the types of client, but that's not to say we wouldn't do it again depending on a type of client, would be that we'd use Unbounce. So Unbounce is a landing page tool, and within Unbounce what we tended to set up was a particular style of landing page. Let's see if I can maybe show an example of a landing page. So this style of landing page worked really well. There was not a great deal of text on it, so you don't necessarily need lots of text, but I think that's more like in the SEO world, where it's not a magic number that says you have to have 300 words on, otherwise you can't rank in the top 10. It's more to do with sort of, I guess, the sector that you're after. So if you're after a particular sector and you're expecting lots of words, then, and you come up with not many words, then you're probably not going to do well as far as your SEO goes. But if you've got a really good call to action, then your pay-per-click might be working well. So I'm not sure that the number of words on the page is relevant to you getting a high score, period, as in that those two statements go together. I think it depends on the sector and sort of what you can do within that particular sector. So if you're a plumber, for example, do you really want 2,000 words on there for an emergency plumber call out service? I don't think you do.
Right on. Is there a best practice?
I'll just show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So on this example, this is a page that we took out from Unbounce initially. So this is very clearly an Unbounce page. So this is what we use for the pay-per-click. And I think if we sort of take, so this would be one of the examples. So what we do there, and if you put that search term in, then you can see that there at number 1, it's actually a different page, but we took some of the intelligence from one to the other. We're actually just reworking that now for this client. But that's an example of finding something that works. As we didn't know when we first started this that actually this was a particularly good term, because he does. You see here how it started, 24-hour fibre optic repair, that migrated to emergency fibre repair service, of which we pick up number 1.
That's an excellent example. I love it.
Obviously, don't go sharing that around with people.
Too late.
To get rid of that off the recordings.
I already live tweeted it. There's a question, and just generally, you don't need to dive into this one too much, I think, because I think you'll cover this at other points, but is there a rule of thumb for how many ad groups is too many when you're looking at, say, your exact match campaigns versus your phishing campaigns?
Yes, there's actually something to watch out for, which I can show you on what we've got set up. Let me just pull this over. So this is now more a pay-per-click question than a PPC for SEO question, but I'm happy to sort of answer this because it is a common question. So this is our campaign at the moment. We've got 5 ad groups, so it's really easy to see. We can see it on one page. So there's a couple of things that I look out for. If you've got too many ad groups listed down here for it to show, then even when you click on this to open and close, then Google tells you that they've been truncated because there's too many. So I did an account a number of years ago that had 22,000 ad groups, and that had to go across multiple MCCs, my client centers, and the guy had to go back to Google to get them to open things up, because even though it says initially that there's no limits, there are actual limits. We couldn't get more than 100 campaigns in one account, and that had to be opened out. And basically what we was doing was we were trying to cover all of the regions throughout the UK for this particular service. So when he had it initially, he was doing stuff by location and by area, and you would click on this and this would drop down with, you know, maybe dozens in there. It was very, very difficult to manage. So not only have you got what's easy for you to manage and what's quick for you to look at, but you can actually come across a problem whereby you're going to prevent your ads from running properly. So let's say this has used all of our budget in this live example, and we've got these 5 ad groups and all of them are coming through with odd clicks. We've got one ad group here which is completely dominating. So out of our £17 spend, £16.60 of it has gone onto this ad group. If this ad group is really popular and there's a lot more key terms available within this ad group, then what you're actually doing is you're going to be throttling your campaign, because these other ad groups, which might have a keyword in that maybe only comes up once or twice a day, is not going to have the opportunity to show, because Google is going to take the money for this one, which is more popular, and it absolutely knows between 2 points in time it can have the money spent. So why would it not have your money spent here on the hope that maybe one of the keywords comes into your other ad groups? So where you get this lopsided effect, where you've got maybe 1 or 2 at the top that are absolutely running away with it, what I then tend to do is break out from that point. So I'd maybe keep these 2 together in their own campaign. I would create another campaign and literally move all these 3 low impression ones into their own campaign. If you get to a point where your impressions are low and you're not using your budget on a daily basis, but you think they're reasonable terms because of what you've fished, because you've put these now into a separate campaign, you've got the option of going into your settings and changing the way that your accounts run. So change here, delivery method. I'd then set it for accelerated. So I'd be wanting to pick up every opportunity possible because I know they're not that popular. just because a key phrase isn't popular doesn't mean it isn't any good. So that's like the main thing to try to get through. It's not popularity, it's quality.
Next question, do you ever look at the audience report?
Not really for this. I have on, when you go to the columns, I tend to go with more the competitive metrics. I don't really use the audience side of it. I know you can see various things in there about what other people are doing and what's available, but you know, as I say, this course is about the pay-per-click for the SEO and what to do, bang, 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 to get the most out of that. Even when I'm doing some of the bigger pay-per-click accounts that I look at, I know there's features in here that could really help, but on a time basis compared to the return, there's lots of things that I don't look at because I know I can get good enough results from doing what I do. That is not to say that the audience report isn't any good. I know you could use it to good effect. In terms of the other features that are available, some of those features actually don't work. So one of the bidding features up until a few months ago doesn't work. The automatic bidding. Google tried to do something with that CPA bidding, which is the cost per acquisition, and the algorithm for that is flawed. I also don't like using the enhanced CPC, where Google's going to change my my bids. I like to do my own bids, as again I know that can just run away with you. There was also a change at Christmas, just before Christmas, where people who I was looking after who had broad match set up and the budget wasn't being used, all of a sudden Google started to use all of their budget. So despite being set up for many months and not using the budget, without changing the ad groups and the campaigns, Google just immediately started using all of their budgets. So I had a few customers complain about that scenario. I picked up a nice job from that actually as well. So when Google makes changes, sometimes it's good.
No doubt about it.
I don't use, but yeah.
Do you ever consider retargeting when you're building your landing pages?
No. Again, this is for SEO. I did do quite a lot of work at one point on the retargeting and the remarketing. I really like the intelligence now that you can get from the doing it with Facebook, the Facebook pixel, and there's certain things that you can do in this with Google, particularly stuff with the shopping. We used to run a coupon for people who'd got abandoned baskets. So we used to do the emailer through the abandoned basket, and we then also used to retarget those people with the AdWords. We did once a brand campaign for someone where it was just purely on the retargeting and the remarketing, and that worked really well because you can get a lot of clicks for very, very low money. In general terms though, for helping with SEO, I haven't found that the retargeting works too well, but if anybody comes up with any ideas, I'm always learning. I'm all ears. So again, specifically retargeting for SEO, I know how retargeting works and use it, but in SEO terms, I'm not sure how that would work.
Just a practical question here. Do you know if there's a way to see if your ad is actually showing without having to go to incognito and search?
Yes, you can go to Tools and Ad Preview and Diagnosis. And then here you can put in your search term. You can make your selections from the side. So you can choose however you want that to be. You put in your search term, and Google will tell you. But again, another one of those little isms, you know, the way this is set. So this is saying that our search term shows there's the campaign, there's the ad group. This tool actually doesn't work 100% correctly. I've been on numerous times to the Google support people, and when it works like this, it's great because you can see it here, and you can see this was the new ad that we wrote before where we inserted the UK in there. And so when it's like this, yes, it's great, it works, but there are instances where you've maybe got a key term that could possibly appear in several of your different ad groups and campaigns. Google doesn't always give you the right information, and sometimes you've got a keyword that does work and Google's taking your money, you put it on here and it says that it's not running because either your quality score is not good enough or just says it doesn't exist. So this is a good idea and a good guide, but I would never 100% trust it.
Right on. What do you consider a big PPC account in your experience or the clients that you've had?
Where you've got lots of campaigns to deal with, where it's a pretty, pretty big site. I'm not actually sure what the biggest one is at the moment that I've got. I have dealt with over £1 million a month on spend. I've dealt with, say, 22,000 ad groups. I've dealt with, which it's actually more difficult, where someone says I've only got sort of 500 quid to spend. For 500 quid, it can be really difficult and really hard to get results. I'm just taking a look now at the biggest one that I've got on my books. So at the moment, currently running, that's quite difficult to see, but I've got one particular campaign that is currently running at, it's only $2,000, but the actual account itself, the whole account, is into 6 figures, but the biggest single campaign I've got is $2,000 in the last 30 days. I do consultancy on a wide variety of campaigns. At any point that could be even low, it could just be a few $100s. Sometimes it can be right up at say tens of thousands. So the biggest one at the moment is in 6 figures on a 30-day period, but the biggest campaign I've got is only $2,000.
Right on. The next question is, would you create a new campaign for your strongest terms as a sort of like
Yes.
alpha beta campaign?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
When you're doing PPC work, do you charge by the hour, or do you charge by percentage of spend?
Oh, now you're asking me agency questions.
People need to know. People need to know.
Yeah. So it again, it varies. It really depends on a number of things, because a lot of people ask me to come in, hence why some of the accounts that we've got sometimes are really low. A lot of people ask me to come in as a very short-term quick fix. So I don't really want you to look after my account. What I really want you to do is to come in and go, can you just look at that? I'll pay you X per hour, or I'll give you a few £100. When it goes over to the agency style model, the way that we quote on an agency basis, we have a setup fee. That setup fee is usually £500 to set up, and then we charge either £250 per month or 10% of the spend, whichever the greater. So if you put that into dollar terms, you say, look, it's $500 to set up and it's $250 a month management, or 10% of spend, whichever the greater. There's a caveat on that, obviously. Once you get to something where there's a lot being spent, one that I just finished off a few months ago, they were spending 25 grand a month, but we weren't charging 10% of that spend to manage that account. What we do when we reach a certain point is the $250. I say to people, if you work that out on average of that sort of $50 per hour, then that's the sort of management that that you're looking at. So I'm maybe going to look at it for, perhaps 4 or 5 hours in a month. If it's a more difficult client, so if this is not just a topic that I can do easy, so anything where really it's going to be perhaps a lawyer or mortgage or finance or something that's more difficult, then that price rises depending on how much work they want me to do for that job. So it's not really a one answer to the question, but that's as a guide. So if you're doing local SEO for someone, or you're just trying to, it's a small local firm, they've maybe got a smallish turnover, I don't feel as you can go into those people and start charging, a big heavy rate, because you just tend to not get the work. So with those, I tend to go in, offer sort of a 3 to 6 month process, go in, set it up, get them running, and then just try to keep them on a very small maintenance where once a month I'll just chat to them and help them. So that can be a low retainer, but it means I can deal with lots of them without it really impacting on my time. The more difficult ones are actually the ones where there isn't as much money to spend, because you've really got to work hard at times to make those work. And particularly if someone says it's $100 a click, and I've only got $200 a day to spend. Like, what do you want me to do with 2 clicks? Very difficult.
Do you ever set up SCAGs? Do you ever use that technique? Single keyword ad groups?
Yeah, as I covered before, I do. But if that's how it starts out, I don't often end up, if I've been running a campaign or an account for maybe a few weeks, I would very rarely have any SCAGs left. Quite often that's how they start, but as soon as I start to discover other words, I tend to throw in 2 or 3 words. I also at times will put the matched terms in, so as you find a matched term, I would put that in if it was close enough. Obviously if it was a completely different word, then I'd maybe look at a different ad group. But as well, if it's something I'm really interested in, I tend to put the single and the plural. Google does say that you don't need to do that, but if you do that, you'll see different results between single and plurals. So generally there would be singles and plurals in the ad groups as well.
Okay, and this might be the last question here. Do you add modifiers for search terms with 3 or more words? So, when you do a modified broad, would you do that just for like 1 or 2 words, or would you actually take that out to 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Again, dependent on the word and how popular it is. I tend to have modifiers on 3 words as the sort of rule of thumb. So if I go back to the one that we were working on, obviously a 2-word generic is only going to have both words. You can adjust your fishing in completely different ways. So if we take this one, so I've put it there on the 3rd word. So if I think the 3rd word is really important, like tool for example, but I found UK on there, so keyword research tool UK, then what I might set up is keyword research UK and put that as a 3-word term. I then might throw in tool as a generic broad or leave it. It depends on how popular it's going to be. It's something that I just play around with. If you're going to get a 4, 5, 6 word term, then there's definitely going to be 3 words of that 5 and 6 word term that I would have the modifier on. But no, I don't always have the modifier every time I fish, but I generally have it on the first 3. And if I find a 4th word that would suit. So again, in that instance as UK, I might turn that into a different 3-worder with the 3 modifiers. So it would be mixed up. The fishing technique doesn't rely on using the modifier, because you can fish and just put everything in, just complete broad match. If you throw stuff on as complete broad match, you are definitely going to get lots of keywords that you can look at. There's going to be a big wide range for you to have a go at, but you're probably going to be reducing quite heavily your quality scores. Your costs are going to go up, and you sort of lose a little bit of control. But if you're struggling for terms and your research isn't working out too well, then for sure you can just be throwing keywords at that without modifying them and just seeing what comes in. I would do that under control, or where I'd have it in a separate campaign and I'd be really controlling that budget.
Right on. I think that's the last question, man.
Okay. Can we just cover quickly then the marketing brain? As I had a few questions on that.
Sure, go right ahead.
The way the tool works, the marketing brain, there is going to be a separate. I'll do a few more videos on it separately for people. But the way that it works is you need to have your pay-per-click connected into your analytics. You need to have your SEO from Search Console connected into Google Analytics. And then what you're doing is you're giving the marketing brain access to your Google Analytics account with your AdWords and your Search Console linked to that Google Analytics account. So that's generally where people struggle with that setup. If you're not running pay-per-click, then the marketing brain isn't going to work for you, because what it's doing is it's taking the intelligence from the pay-per-click and your SEO and merging them together for you. Ideally, you want conversion set up. So marketing brain does help with finding good keywords where there may be words you've not thought of, but it really works best if you've got conversion set up so that you can see what terms are converting. Because it's in beta, once you've signed up, it's a manual process for me to just add you to the list. So if you've signed up and not seen anything for 6 to 12 hours, it's probably because I'm sleeping or I haven't been at the machine. So just whilst it's in beta for everybody, I just manually accepting those people. So if you've signed up and not seen anything, please check your junk folder, because you should have an automated mail from the marketing brain. Anybody that's got any questions, or if they've signed up and they can't use it, or they've done the initial sign up and not had a return, please just email me and I'll get round to it and I'll get you sorted and set up. Okay, that's it, Kyle, I think, unless there's anything else.
I think that's it. I want to thank everyone for being on. Thank you for all your questions and your participation. Derek, thank you. That was an amazing 2 hours. That's way more
2
than
hours, wow.
That was way more than was promised. But it was fantastic information. I really appreciate also you on the questions that people came in, and even if they weren't directly applicable, I think they were extremely valuable to hear your expertise on those things. Many thanks for everyone for being on. There will be a recording, of course, and that should be delivered to you. We'll see you next week. Derek, I'll give you the last word.
Yep, thanks guys. Thanks for all your questions. It is testing. I don't know what's going to be coming up, but you keep me on my toes, which is good. And for next week, there's going to be a lot of work done on that site, so we'll have more stuff to look at. And I'm going to go through some of the on-page optimization that you'll see, and we're going to move on, I think, next week to dynamic pages as well, and maybe look at some click-to-call stuff. So there's a lot more to come for next week.
Sounds great. So, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, okay.
Sorry. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys later next week. Bye.
Okay, bye everyone.